Chris and Dan show. I'm really excited about this one. Aren't you, Chris?
Yes, absolutely.
Maybe
Had a
you're
brief
you're
conversation, and Emily seems to be a very interesting character. Can't wait to dive into this.
you might be meeting your future neighbor for the first time on a podcast, which would be a first
That would
for
be.
probably most people. Um, we've got Emily Jaenson on, keynote speaker, podcast host, sports executive. Her book is coming out in the spring of 2024. The one you see behind me, Let's Go. She is frequently called upon to speak and consult on how to create more confident, goal driven employees. I could definitely benefit from that, both myself and Chris as employers. Fortune 500 companies, sports organizations, national conferences. She teaches strategies that create more confident employees who experience less fear and anxiety, so less need for CBD for those people like our previous guest with the CBD guy batch. Her book's coming out in the spring. I'm gonna get it. She was named general manager of the AAA baseball team in the minor league baseball, the first female to hold this role in 20 years. Later named the DEI committee partnering major and minor league baseball and inclusion efforts. She's got a podcast, Leadership is Female, where she interviews female execs. Amazing, Emily. Thank you for coming on. We don't deserve to have you on, but somehow we messed around and got you on the show.
You guys are too kind. Thank you for having me.
So let's go like way back, to where you grew up and kind of what led you on the path that you chose, or that you've created, I guess.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a Chicagoland native. My friends from college joke that I'm actually a suburb of Six Flags Great America, not the city of Chicago, because I was so far north. But I grew up in a small town, 3,000 people in my town. And I was an athlete as a kid, like most kids involved in youth sports. And I had big dreams. I wanted to spend more time in the city, but we were kind of rural, suburban type family. And it wasn't until I went to college at the University of Illinois, complete fish out of water. I mean, to go from the size of my town was 3,000. It was three towns that went to one high school. So my high school there's 500 kids in my graduating class, which people will be like, "You're not from a small town." I'm like, "I am." It was like a huge area, one school. But I graduated at the top of my high school class. And then I think I'm like ready to go for college. I get to college and my neighbors across the dorm hallway, they were already sophomores because they had gotten such high scores on their AP exams. I'm all of a sudden one of like 10,000 students. I was very shy, but I was like okay in my own small group. So being put into this like new environment where I was like literally a minnow, I felt like in the ocean, I was ready to like go back home and be like, screw it. I'm not doing this. But there was this like seed inside me that said, you want more, like you got to figure out how to do it. And I ended up majoring in advertising. I was offered a full-time job in the city with an ad agency, salary, and health insurance, but I turned it down for an internship with the Chicago Bulls.
Mm,
I wanted to start my career in sports.
mm.
And I think to my parents' chagrin, I made like $0, lived in the city. But I was starting chipping away at my dream. And I think it was equally like a dream and a nightmare scenario at the same time, because for this like really shy girl, my job was making phone calls all day long to sell season and group tickets. And that was pretty challenging for someone who in high school couldn't even pick up the phone to order a pizza because I was too shy to do it. So I was forced very early on in my career into really like difficult, challenging personal situations for me that I needed to find my way out of in order to experience success. So, the Bulls taught me sales, and they also taught me consistency and hard work. Like the only job you were responsible for was picking up the phone and dialing. And I also learned, that's the lifeblood of any organization is selling tickets. So the fact that I could do that and drive revenue for companies and sports orgs, like led to this pretty great career working in sports.
Very nice. And so something you said there, I don't think there's a position you can do anywhere in the world in which there isn't sales involved.
Mhm.
I can't think of one, right? I mean, Dan and I talk to individuals all the time, doctors primarily, that, oh, I'm not a good salesman. I can't do sales. It's like, well, you're doing it all the time. You just don't realize it, right? And um, interesting that you would pick advertising and kind of concerned about individual conversations, individualized conversations in terms of sales. Interesting career path.
Yeah, well, I think that I looked at advertising more as flashy magazine ads at the time or commercials. I'd be sort of the person behind the scenes creating that. But the more that I started to explore my career, the more I was like, that's not how it works.
Mhm.
Like there was so much, I wasn't exposed to a lot of careers as a kid. My mom was a school librarian. My dad worked in concrete restoration. And like, that's pretty much all that I knew. And I thought, studying advertising, we really, we looked at history, we looked at case studies, we did all of sort of like the background work, but like to understand what you would do in a day-to-day job, advertising is sales. So it
Mhm.
just, I think kids, I call us kids because like, I mean, I graduated college at 21 years old. Like I feel like I was an infant compared to where I am today. Like you might get this degree and not even understand what the job is. And for me, getting the job at the Bulls was like meeting a huge goal because I wanted to work in sports, but I still didn't understand exactly what that meant until I got in there and started to do the work and had visibility to the roles that the other, departments had around me. And, fast forward like all these years later, it's one of the reasons why I started my podcast, Leadership is Female, because when I got my job as a GM in AAA baseball, came with this subtitle of first woman in nearly 20 years to have this job. And I was like, all right, I get it. Like I understand, like I'm really excited to have this role. This is just a big responsibility, but I don't really know what that means. Like I got this job because of what I can do for the organization, the work that I can do, not to have this, headline. And 7 months later, I was at baseball winter meetings, and there's this really great women in baseball breakout session where they had asked me to come and speak on stage to this room of like 350 women. And I talked about my career. I talked about the work that I did. I talked about having a family. I just was up there on stage just being me. And after the panel had ended, I left the stage and a line formed in front of me of a bunch of women from the event. And one after another, they said, I didn't realize that I could have that job until I saw you, because all I saw before that were men occupying that role. And that's where it really clicked for me, is like, you can't be what you can't see. And without even really realizing it, like that had been sort of a common thread through my whole career is, what roles could I have? What roles could I hold? And the more visibility I think that people have to those opportunities, the more likely you are to set a goal for yourself to attain what it is that you really want to achieve. So, I haven't stopped speaking since then, and really trying to show up for the next generation, and also, people who might not have like a great leadership team around them in their own, at their own business. They can, lean on the podcast and, find some great leadership from the interviews that come forward.
So I'm curious, what did your transition look like from Chicago Bulls to the AAA team?
Yeah. So there was a windy road in the middle. I actually worked for a pretty big nonprofit, selling sponsorships for their and planning their major events, which was again a position I didn't really know that I like was going to take. But when the opportunity presented itself at a young age, I got to make big deals. In not from behind the phone. I was sitting in a boardroom with a partner at a big law firm in Chicago, asking him for, 5 to 6 figures to sponsor a golf tournament or a major event we were holding. And it was huge for me to step into those shoes. So I learned sponsorship, which was actually very applicable to the sports industry. Advertising has really woven its way into that. I ended up really making a name for myself selling sponsorships, selling corporate partnerships, where companies want their logo in your stadium because they want that affiliation with your team. They want to use your name, image, and likeness. And, that's how I eventually got the opportunity to be the GM. Like, you're in AAA baseball, you're running the business of baseball. You've got to have a great relationship with your affiliate. You've got to get the team around the country. You have to do a turnaround of playing in one city, and the next morning you're in another one the next night. But in order to operate successfully and have the facilities and have the support that these guys need in order to make it to the next level, you got to make money. And you make money through your ticket sales, your sponsorship sales. And I knew how to do that. So that's how I worked my way up to getting that opportunity.
Yeah. So, uh, is being a GM of a AAA team similar in that regard? Because I wouldn't envision that it is, but is it similar to, say, a pro team and a GM?
I'm not picking the players on the field. In fact, the manager in minor league baseball isn't even picking the players on the field. That's coming from the major league organization. They are the puppeteers from major league all the way down to single A. And they're essentially working with a roster of, over 100 players that they are going to either grow in the lower levels of the minor leagues, or they're going to use a AAA team as essentially their bench depth. I mean, in
Mhm.
Reno, we had 200 transactions per season, this carousel of pitchers just going round and round and round, call up, down, call up, down. And, right now, D-backs are in the World Series. And, for years, we've had one of the best minor league systems in the country. It's been called the best farm system, like, over and over and over again. The Aces won the championship last year. The AA affiliate, the Amarillo Sod Poodles, have won the championship 2 out of the last 4 years. Like, something was happening in the minor leagues that will pay it forward into the major leagues. And I think that's what you're seeing right now with the Arizona Diamondbacks.
That is so
That's
cool.
awesome. Yeah, that's
I'm
awesome.
going for the Diamondbacks being in Arizona, but my team's Angels. That's my home team. That's so cool. I mean, there's a lot to unpack with this and a lot of ways we can go with this interview, and we'll try to get to as many of them as we can. But you said if like for a lot of people, if you can't see it, you can't achieve it. But you didn't see it and you achieved it. So what is it that made you do it? I'm just wondering, like, if you've ever gotten like introspective about that.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think I achieved it because hard work is like the foundation of everything that we do. It can sound cliche, but it's what it comes down to. I mean, everyone who's worked around me, underneath me, they've all experienced success or promotion because they put in the effort. So I also never really feel like I have two brothers. I played sports when the girls weren't around. I just played with the guys. I don't feel like being the only woman in the room is like not really intimidating to me anymore. So while I didn't see a woman in that role, I thought, why not me?
Hmm.
And I think that is a question like we can ask ourselves, we should ask ourselves about anything you want to achieve, any idea that kind of comes into your mind. Why not you?
Mhm.
We're all just people. Like, go after what you want and put in that hard work. Be so good they won't forget you. Be memorable, and those opportunities will come your way. When I got the offer to be the GM of the Aces, what had happened was I had previously worked for the team. Um, in 2013, I took a job there as an account executive after I had already had 8 years experience.
Is
And
this is this why you moved to Reno, or you were already in Reno?
So I moved to Reno originally for a guy. I think you get here, for a job or a relationship. My husband was in the military, and we actually have a base in the middle of nowhere that he was a part of for a time. So that's how we ended up in Northern Nevada.
Okay.
And I'll just lean into the craziness of this story. So I got here and I immediately got a job with a nonprofit in town. And I took that role. One, I needed a job because I was like, we're moving to the middle of nowhere. I'm sorry, Reno. I love you. I've been here for 10 years now, but like, I didn't know where it was even, there wasn't a lot of prep. He was in the military. It's like, we're moving. And we moved here. I got a job with a nonprofit. The CEO of that nonprofit, her name's Ann Silver. She now runs the Chamber of Commerce here in town. Her brother is Adam Silver. He's commissioner of the NBA.
Wow.
The Reno Aces are owned by Herb Simon, who owns the Indiana Pacers of the NBA. So there was like these weird collisions of like my experience with the Bulls, this woman and her brother. She knew the ownership group of the team because of her relation of her brother, and then knowing it was like kind of this, like the world can be that way. It can be kind of like a very big collision of relationships. So I was working for her for a few months, and she's like, "You should work for the baseball team in town." I'm like, "I just started with you." She's like, "I know, but you should really be working there." So she made an introduction for me, and they were like, "That's great that you got this cool intro, but we don't know who you are. It doesn't mean we're not going to put you in like a high position just because you've had these other jobs or these people. Here's what's available. You can be an account executive in corporate sponsorship. We have one position open. It's 2 to 3 years experience. I had 8. The pay is less than what you were making. The title sucks. But if you want to have a chance to work here, like this is your job." And I was kind of like, all right, this is the crossroads we talk about. I could keep going with this other organization. There's potential for me to grow here, or I could take this job and I could bet on myself. And I think like the competitive side of me was like, take the job and show them what you can do. And I did. 2.5 years later, I was promoted to vice president. In that time, I also had a kid, my first baby. And that opportunity like really proved to me that if you get in there and you bust it, like you can grow. And I had to leave because again, I was married, we had a kid, and he got a job offer in Houston, Texas. In Houston, I got a great opportunity with the Harris County Houston Sports Authority. That's the sports marketing arm for the city of Houston, where I got a chance to work on a Super Bowl, a World Corporate Games, the Houston Sports Awards show the year after the Astros had won the World Series. JJ Watt had raised millions of dollars after Hurricane Harvey. Like it was this amazing like sports town for this year. And all the while I kept in touch with the Aces, and I was like, "Hey, I just worked this major event, and this is the sponsorship activation that we did. I could see how it could apply to the team that I used to run, like the sponsorship team I used to run in this way. Like, have you thought of that?" Or I would see they reached a new goal, and I would reach out and say, "Great job. Like, I'm so proud of you guys. Keep crushing it." I just kept in touch for 2 years. So when the team expanded and brought on a soccer team as well, so the sports organization grew as baseball and soccer, they needed someone to run baseball that would focus exclusively on baseball. They went through an interview process, interviewing people all around the country. And ultimately, they called me and said, "We've interviewed all these people. There's only one person for the job. It's you. How can we get you to move back to Reno?"
Wow.
So it's a very long, twisty story, but I think the lessons in there are do good work, stay in touch, keep your relationships, like stay humble. I had to intentionally take a step back to propel myself forward and set big goals around what I wanted. And that led to a phenomenal opportunity to lead that team for several years. And it all came from betting on myself, and I love to talk about it now, and hope to inspire just one person at a time to just go after it.
So
Wow.
it's nice that it was your husband's turn to move for a job.
Yeah, it was. It was. I got one time, right? That you can
That's
do
right.
some. Yeah.
That's
And
right.
now you stayed in Reno, right? Like that's your
We did.
home. That's your home.
Yes. Yes, it is our home.
I didn't realize, we won't stay on the Reno Aces too long, but I didn't realize that private ownership groups own these teams. I always assumed the major league team owned the minor
Yeah,
league
I
affiliates.
did too. Yep.
No, no, private ownership. There
Huh.
are groups that are buying up several teams,
Oh
which I think is
god.
smart. It's optimization of
We got
business.
venture capital coming into minor league baseball.
We do. It's crazy.
They're
Yeah, and
everywhere.
in Major League Baseball, there was a big transition during the pandemic, and Major League Baseball now oversees
Hmm.
minor league baseball. So it
Mm.
all goes up to one entity. And I think one day MLB is gonna go from cradle to retirement with youth baseball to guys retiring out of the major leagues. I think that's probably the big vision there.
Ah, they want end to end
Yeah, I think
control.
so. I
Like
think so.
soccer, kind of like soccer in Europe, right? Like they own.
True. Yep.
Yeah.
Very true. It's been done before.
So I have to assume, but any MLB ambitions?
For me,
How many times do
no.
you get asked this question?
Yeah, a lot. A lot. Right now, I left the Aces at the beginning of 2022,
It's
and
not long ago.
no, it's not too long ago. But I left to take on like new challenges, and that's really where the book, the speaking, all of that came from. And this chapter of my life is really dedicated to those endeavors. And I'd love to keep this mountain view out my office window as long as I'd like.
Yep.
There you go.
There's a magic of working for yourself that
Mhm.
can't be replicated anywhere else, no matter how cool the job is. Last question about the Reno Aces, I promise.
Yeah.
Since they don't develop the players, right? They have no say in who you get and who you keep and all that. Like, what's the KPI? What's the key performance indicator? Is it just sales or sponsorships, or like what is it? It can't be wins and losses, is it? Because you have no control over that either.
You don't. No, you have no control over your roster. You don't get to market the stars like you would in
Mm.
MLB or NFL or NBA, because they could be there today and gone tomorrow. So minor league baseball is fun. We build in wacky promotions. It's
Mhm.
all about fan entertainment. Of course, it's about the baseball on the field, and it for me, like when I was with the Aces, what I created was this mix of like traditional baseball. We want to celebrate the wins. We want to celebrate all of the key plays on the field, but we can have a little bit more fun with the players, with the in-game promotions, with the jerseys. Big thing in minor league baseball is the theme night. So you're leaning into all of the exciting like pop culture hits, whether that's Marvel, whether that's Harry Potter, whether it's the Sandlot, those kind of key moments in pop culture. Like you're making that happen in some way in minor league baseball. Fireworks, it's affordable family entertainment when you have like dollar
Mhm.
hot dog night or Thirsty Thursday with $2 beers. Like there's all these promotions woven in. And I would say regarding the players, I loved to talk about the fact that these guys' dreams are coming true right in front of your eyes. Like they have worked their entire life to get their major league call up. And
Yep.
it could happen right here in your hometown. And I think if you paint it through that lens and you just keep talking about it and you just keep celebrating the success of these guys, the fans start to get it and they're pumped. I mean, Christian Walker is first baseman for the D-backs. He played for the team for a couple of years. When I was there, everyone loved him. And they still do. And they love him now as the star that he is for the Arizona Diamondbacks. And they are nostalgic about the times that they got to see him at their little minor league ballpark, in town. So
Mm,
you gotta like anything. We talked about sales a lot, and you have to create the narrative. And I think
yeah,
that's really what minor league baseball does a good job at.
that's
I
cool.
I had never been to a AAA or AA game until about 5 years ago. Had been to probably 100 or more MLB games, and I found I actually prefer going to minor league games. They're just way more fun. Have you been to one,
Mhm.
to Dan? To a minor league game? They're like
No, I was close to going to Lake Elsinore, whatever
yeah.
they are, and the
I've
San
been to
Bernardino
the Storm.
66ers,
The
Sure.
Storm.
66ers.
Yeah, the Storm.
Yeah.
And they're just way more entertaining. There's more, like, you bring your kids, they have a lot more fun at those games than
Mhm.
Mm,
when you go to the MLB,
Yeah.
right? Um, it's more entertaining. It just is.
Yeah, and it's easy. It's approachable. When you're
Yep.
bringing your kids, like, it's hard to go to a gigantic stadium with the sea of people, and a lot of these venues, a lot of these
Mhm.
stadiums for minor league baseball, like, you can park close, you can walk in. You're not going to lose your kid on the concourse. They probably have a park that they can play at in the outfield if they're getting antsy in the seats. Your proximity to the players is so different. Almost anybody in the stadium could get an autograph that night,
wow,
right? Like, there's not all these big barriers to the talent. And I think
I like
that's what
that.
makes it
I
enticing.
I think every minor league game I've been to, the kids in the crowd all eventually wind up on the field. I mean,
Yeah.
on the playing field. So, yeah, I
Kids
mean,
run the bases.
yep, that's
Yes.
right.
Yeah,
That's dope.
exactly.
Well, so how do you translate that into keeping employees more confident? I'm sure you, in your role with the Aces, you had employees reporting to you, right?
Mhm.
So is that where you got your, I guess, skill or honed your skills as far as employee retention, motivation, happiness, whatever you call it?
I would say yes, and so practicing what I preach in the workplace, and in those situations where I was the only woman in the room, and how do you stay confident in those situations where the other GMs have had their job for 30 years and they're referring you to their assistant to get advice, like, I've practiced it in real life, but I've also done 150 interviews with female executives in sports on leadership is female, and one woman after another has told me that in one way or another, increasing their confidence, finding their voice, has been the tipping point to leveling up in their career, like becoming the woman that they wanted to be. Afforded them the opportunity, won them the opportunity to have the VP job or the C suite job or the president job. It was finding the confidence, finding the voice. And so last year, some friends had sent me a link. Several people tell you to do something without talking to each other first, like, you should maybe start to listen. So I was getting these text messages that said, Emily, you should apply to speak at TEDx. And I was like, oh, that sounds great. What am I going to talk about? Like, I started to think, like, kind of go back through my mental
Wait, but
roller.
you lost your shyness a long time ago, though.
Yeah. Well, no, what would the topic be? You have to create this talk
Um,
that will resonate with people, that you have something to say, you have a point to make that can change ideas, and inspire and maybe change lives. And I was like, all right, well, that is seems like a monumental task. Like, what will I talk about? And as I was sort of going through the process of making that decision, I thought about what I had just described, that these women, myself included, like, our tipping point was when we had grown our confidence to a level where we could achieve bigger things than we had only dreamed of previously. And so I wrote a talk on the topic, and I won a spot at TEDx Reno. And last year, that talk came out in August. And by the end of the year, it was the number 12 talk of the 16,000 that were released on the TEDx channel. And since then has 3 million views.
Wow,
So
nice.
I gotta watch those things.
yeah, so the world reacted and said, like, man, 6 behaviors to increase your confidence. Like, what does that mean? How can I become a more confident person? Because my question was like, what could you do? What could you achieve if you were more confident? Like, if you would go after that thing, if you would say, why not me? And then actually do something about it, what could you do in your life? And I wrote this talk, and, the world has said, like, wow, these are pretty like simple behaviors, these tools that if I practice, I can learn, that I will survive these situations that are seemingly difficult for me. And then your comfort zone expands just a little bit further and allows you to get a little bit further and progress into your goals.
Maybe we'll go through if you want, if we have time, like the six. I think I was born with confidence. I get it from my mom. I've never had issues whatsoever with confidence. Um, the downside of that is humility, which I try to keep in check. We can get into that too later. I actually think women do a much better job than guys at being humble.
I
But
actually have a
go ahead, Chris.
well, so I think it's a very interesting dynamic that takes place for a woman who and hopefully I'm not offensive here, but I think oftentimes women overcompensate for that lack of confidence, or maybe it's something else. And a lot of times their employees dislike them, right?
Ah,
Where I think for a man, it's just more given that I will accept what they say, so they're not judged in the same light. I don't know how to express what I'm trying to say. Hopefully, you're getting what I'm saying here. I'm not trying to be offensive either, but I've worked for a couple of women when I was younger, and nobody liked them, right? Because and if I had to reflect on it now, I would say it's because they're overcompensating, right? In which the same, if the male were in the same role, it's just accepted, right? And they don't have to overcompensate. I don't know. Does
I
that
don't
sound?
know. I mean, I don't know the women that you're speaking of, but I can tell you that there's there's definitely there's a history behind that. Like, we have these ideas that we were born with, or society tells us, to believe. Like, so there's this joke, there's this riddle that let me see if I can tell it right. But a
I bet I
husband,
know. I bet I know the riddle. Go ahead. I've
is
told
it
Dan this riddle.
the
Yes,
doctor one? Yeah,
yes, and I've
the
told
doctor
Dan
one.
this twice, and both times
yeah.
he's gotten it wrong.
My
Yeah.
bad. My
Yeah,
bad.
the dad and the son get in a car accident. They
Yep,
both go to separate hospitals, but the son is being treated by his parent. How could that be?
yep.
And most people
They
can't
don't know.
say that it is his mom.
Yeah.
So clearly, like,
Wow.
we have this history, and this is one of the things that I'll tell you. Like, a lot of the women in events and committees I've been a part of, like, women are, if you're a strong woman, if you've got big ideas, a lot of successful women are unfairly unliked, or disliked, or considered to be, much more harsh terms than a man who might behave the same way. You might call a man a leader, if he behaved the same way as a woman who you might say was rude or forceful, right? Like, it's
Hmm.
I think we have these historic ideas that are a part of our fabric, in this world, that I think women have to constantly go up against, which is why a podcast like Leadership is Female exists, so that you can hear from other women who've gone through it, and get some tips on how to navigate these tough situations. And I wouldn't say that, again, I don't know the people that you're talking
Sure,
about, but I don't
sure.
know that like, I don't know in most cases I would say overcompensate. I would say that they were trying to step into their leadership shoes, and maybe they didn't have an example of or coaching on how to do it appropriately, or maybe there's just biases that exist
Yeah.
around who these women are and how they were behaving. And you said, earlier in your career. So again, this could have been, more than 10 years ago. And who knows if you were looking at it through like the lens of today, or having these experiences, like how that might have changed. So, I can't really speak to it, but I'll tell you that it's something that women encounter, I think, unfairly a lot of times. Um, I've been I've been called tough, but then my team meets their sales goal and gets a bonus. So I'm like, would you
Sure.
rather have let me had you go to happy hour every day or stay and finish your work? You know?
You
Mhm.
can't
Um,
run you can't run an organization without being tough, and I think
no.
what Emily's trying to say is the preconceived notions are that women are not supposed to be tough, they're supposed to take a back seat to men. But then
Well,
when you put them in business, you don't want them to be tough because 'cause I'd want my woman CEO to be tough as hell.
see, I think that's the wrong frame of reference. What I think is it's maybe more to do with women are kind of cast into the light, either I don't know if that's right or wrong, but as nurturers, right? Because of
Nurture, yeah,
mothers,
yeah.
right? So if you're tough on somebody, a lot of times they don't look at you or expecting, hey, nurture me, don't yell at me, right?
Mm.
It's
Yeah,
just
I
one of
could
the things going on.
yeah, I could agree with that. And I think that women have a lot of unique, you said it yourself, Dan, like
Humility.
humility, right? Maybe women are better than that. Maybe women are more nurturing. Women are really good listeners. We're empathetic. And these are generalizations of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
gender, but like those could be key strengths because you could be tough and those things. And I think that I think that's why I garnered a lot of respect from my staff, because I could be tough and hold them accountable. But I also, buy them a bottle of champagne when they get engaged, and notice like those things, that they're a whole person. And I think that's why people enjoyed working for me, because I could get the job done, but also see you as a person as well. And not to say that like men can't do it. I think we're really generalizing here, but I think there's some unfair caricatures of female leadership, and that's kind of what we're doing. Like I'm with the book, with leadership is female. Like we're here to present ideas and take what you like, leave what you don't. Hopefully, there's some concepts that can help you to be better in whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. And I think confidence is on a spectrum. I think it can even waver day to day, from super confident to feeling this heavy weight of imposter syndrome that like women talk about constantly. Um,
Mm.
and these behaviors can help you to get through those tough times. That's really what we talk about in the book, is developing your confidence, setting big goals, because I'm here to live a big life. We get one shot. Like, why not? Why not go after it? And I hope to inspire other people to do the same.
Facts. I'm gonna buy the book, give it to Katie Welch, give it to Monica Quitiva, LIF podcast. The LICR girls would love this podcast. They gotta listen. Um, do you want to talk a little bit about what those 6 behaviors are to increase confidence?
Yeah, let's jump in, for a quick review. Number one, 20 seconds of courage. What could you do if you only had to be brave for 20 seconds? This is a bit of just
Mm.
like a mind shift, for those tough moments where you're going to you have a inkling of an idea of a goal you want to set for yourself, and you have to take the first step towards achieving it. You only have to be brave for 20 seconds. You can complete the registration for that half marathon. You can hit publish on the first episode of your podcast. You can just be brave for 20 seconds and make major moves towards achieving your next goal. The second one is cheer someone else on. And I'll say that this is one of the biggest turning points in my career is when I stopped being competitive. I would say specifically, I was competitive with everybody. But I think women to women as well. We think there's, not enough room at the table for all of us, and you claw to get there, and you pull the ladder up behind you. And I was like, what if we didn't? What if we supported her accomplishments and achievements, and how far could that take us? And I think again, this is a mindset piece. Amy Poehler said, "Good for her, not for me." What if you adopted that mindset? Like, you might have not even been going after that job. Like, why are you feeling emotion that she won it and you didn't? So cheer her on, support her in her success, and it'll take you so much further. One, because your mindset is completely different. But two, you start to get this larger group of really incredible people around you when you're genuinely happy and excited for them. I've got so many examples of people who've been offered opportunities to interview for jobs after congratulating someone for winning the position. It has this huge ripple effect. So number two is cheer someone else on.
Can I interrupt there real quick? So
Yeah.
I'm curious. You kind of threw your parents out there at the beginning of this, so I'm going to put your parents on blast. When did they? when were they thrilled, or at least happy with your decision making in terms of uh, career path?
They always were. I mean,
Well, you
they're
said they took issue with the Chicago Bulls internship.
well, because I was not going to make like $0.
$0, right?
It's like, I don't want to, they didn't have a little extra money to help support me and wanted me to be able to stand on my own 2 feet. So,
Okay.
but, I think like anything, when I was happy, they were happy.
That's
I
good.
think they had that mindset that I hope most parents have, where we talk so much about like, oh, it's just empty nester now, your kids are gone or whatever. I like the idea, and I think my parents instilled this in me of being a bird launcher. Like, you're not an empty nester. Like, you should be launching your children out into society. And their biggest dream for me was to, go and do my own thing. And if that was moving away from home, they were also fine with that. But yeah, the Bulls was just funny because they were like, wait, you could have had a real salary, and now you're going to get an hourly wage. And
Turned out
how
well,
much
though.
does your apartment cost?
Yeah,
You can barely afford the ticket to ride the L every day, for an hour
but it
out to the
turned
stadium.
out well.
It did. It
That's
did.
good.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Sorry for the interruption. We can continue with number
I could
three.
tell that question was burning in your brain. No problem.
It actually was.
So number three, take a seat at the table, and not metaphorically speaking, actually take a seat at the table. This is a behavior we're talking about. And you guys may have noticed in the past, guys sometimes do it too, but women especially, they kind of wait around the edges of the room, and they wait for the seats to be filled before taking their own around a conference table. And it's like, if you were invited to that meeting, or God forbid you set that meeting, physically take your seat at the table. And this behavior was the turning point for one of the women I interviewed on the podcast, she's an agent in Major League Baseball, signed one of the biggest deals on record. And earlier in her career, she had noticed this behavior, that women were waiting to take a seat, and she was doing it too. And she's like, I don't understand. Like, I'm part of this meeting. I'm part of this pitch. And here I am, like, standing at the edge of the room. I'm like the last person to sit down. And in order to become the woman, the agent she wanted to be, one who got the deal done, one who spoke up in the meetings, she knew her stuff. She just needed to speak up. She needed to start with physically taking her seat. And when she did, everything changed. And I guarantee for you guys, or for your listeners, like, now that I've brought this up, you're going to start to see it everywhere. And it's a pretty simple action. Take a seat at the table.
Wow.
Um,
Take the power seat. The
yeah,
one at the end. Why not?
yeah, exactly.
All
I
right.
know you would.
I would. I would. Sometimes I'm polite. If I know whose meeting it is, I'm like, I'm not going to be that guy and take that seat, but I'll sit around. It's
Yeah.
contextual.
So number 4 is to bolster your confidence through for a new challenge through a previous success. So give yourself a running start. Anytime we take on a new challenge or a new goal, if you can either reflect on your previous accomplishments or even perform one of those things that you can do well, you know that at one point you were a novice. So like give yourself a little bit of a pump up by like reminding yourself what you're really good at. Whether that's shooting a couple of free throws before the big meeting and remembering the day where you had to do a granny shot, right, to get it to the basketball hoop, or you're setting your goals for 2024. Think about everything that you've accomplished in this last year, like how far you've come. And then I guarantee you're going to dream a little bit bigger and know that it could be achievable for you because you've already come so far. So when you're going to take on a new challenge, look back first to give yourself that running start.
Mm.
Number 5, 3, 2, 1, go. Almost every tough conversation I've had to have, whether it was letting someone go, whether it was talking to a manager about something at the ballpark that I really did not want to discuss on behavior or travel or bad news or whatever it was. Part of me remembered 18-year-old Emily who couldn't order a pizza and wanted to run back to my office rather than confront this tough conversation or situation until I would say to myself in my head, 3, 2, 1, go. Counting will get you started and the momentum will keep you going. There's no surprise that we use a clock in all of our sports, right? Like there's a countdown, there's a count in, there's a starting gun, there's all of these things to like get you moving. So why not use this for those tough situations? And once you survive that conversation, you've pushed your comfort zone a little bit farther and grown your confidence for that next tough challenge. And then number 6, celebrate constantly. Your brain cannot wire itself for success if it can't even remember that you had success in the first place. And the way it remembers your success is by celebration. So when your sales team reaches their goal, don't say, oh, should have made the goal higher. No, celebrate the heck out of it. If you want to meet your sales goal again next time, if you have pushed yourself beyond where you thought you could go and finished that half marathon, don't kick yourself and say, oh, man, what if I would have trained for the marathon? No, celebrate the success of the half and know that, again, you have moved your confidence further down the line because you have reached a goal that you set for yourself and you have put that demarcation line in your brain like, I made it here. I survived. We can do it again. And maybe next time we can push a little bit further. So those are the 6 behaviors to
Man, those
increase your
6 are
confidence.
amazing. I just
So
followed you on Instagram based on
Thank
those
you.
6 because I need more. Number 6, I'm not good at. The
yeah,
other
I was
ones, I'm
thinking
all right.
all 6 are great, and I don't know if that was specifically written for women, but shoot, that's for everybody.
It
And those
is.
and those last 2 are great, at least in my opinion. The others, like
I don't
Dan
do
said,
number 6 enough, man. We
yeah, I
don't
don't
celebrate
either.
enough.
Yeah, I don't either. But 5 and 6 for me.
What's the downside of not celebrating enough?
So it's huge. It's absolutely monumentally gigantic. Like, why would you push yourself to do more
If there's no
or
reward.
to go farther if there's no reward?
Yeah.
Exactly. Our brain
Mm.
likes comfort. We love that comfort zone. We still hold on to those pieces from our ancestor that was survival mode, and then when you got to the cave with the nice fire, like, let's stay here until we really need to leave, right? So we're fighting against that in today's environment. And a way to the hack to push through that is to celebrate your success. And I'll tell you guys that it's the number one of all 6. It's the number one that I get the most questions about. Anytime I finish a keynote and there's a Q&A section, How do I celebrate? What do I celebrate? What should I do when I celebrate? Who should be there? Like, you name it. Like, people are asking like all the most detailed questions about celebrating constantly because everybody says they don't do it enough. And I just believe it's so important to increase your confidence. You got to acknowledge your success. You got to acknowledge the wins.
I just followed you on Instagram. We'll have Emily's links underneath and to the book. Oh, is the book for specifically like for women, or it's for both men and women?
It's for both. It's for
Oh,
everybody.
Yeah,
Like you
those
said,
6 tips right there, that's for everybody.
but
yeah.
yeah.
It's for everybody. You know, the angle started at Women with the Leadership is Female podcast,
Mm,
but honestly, the podcast even has grown. There's 30% of the listenership is men.
mm.
Most of the times I do keynotes. It is absolutely a mixed room. Like, I think these messages apply to all of us, all humans.
I'm
Can
gonna subscribe because I think we need, especially for females, we need strong role models, and like you said earlier, if you don't see it, you don't believe you can achieve it. Like the guys have enough strong role models, probably too many. But the women, it's like few and far between, like especially in the business world. Um, so I think that's incredible. Last thing, the importance of a side hustle. I gotta ask you about this because I also agree with that. But what are your thoughts on this idea?
Yeah. So I don't think a side hustle needs to be defined as something where you make money, but it needs to be defined as something that takes you out of your routine, of your day to day, right?
Mm,
Like, if you are a great, dedicated employee and you're just doing your thing, you're doing your thing, you're doing your thing, and you stay with the company for a while, like, you need a new challenge in your life. And I really believe in that. So I say, if you want to knit hats and sell them on Etsy as your side hustle and that's your therapy, I love it. Or if your side hustle is that you um, want to run a half marathon in every state in the US, or your side hustle is woodworking. Like, it could be anything. It's another, I think it's a different term for hobby. I think we don't love the term hobby anymore. I think it reminds us of our parents maybe. And I love the term side hustle because it also, like, with how busy we are today, it takes a lot of effort to carve out time to do something beyond your normal routine. So that's why I like the term side hustle, for like breaking that routine and giving yourself a new challenge where you can grow.
mm.
You grow through learning new things. And at some point in our life, if we get a little too stagnant in our day to day, you can't continue to grow and flex your curiosity if you're not experiencing something new and different and challenging yourself in a new way. So that's why I'm a big supporter of the side hustle.
That's dope. As a fellow podcaster, how long have you been doing the podcast, the LIF pod?
3 years.
3 years. What's
hmm
been your biggest challenges thus far as a podcaster?
I would say, the content world's tricky. Like, I love the podcast, I love the interview, but then that's never enough. Like, you
Mm,
gotta splice and dice the videos. You gotta go put it up on Instagram. You gotta like, why don't you start a YouTube? It's just like the constant demand to try to find and feed the market. And I want to do justice to the guests who are taking time out to be a part of it and share their messages. And so I'm like, trying to get out there and say as much as I can to help more people find the show so these women can have a greater impact. And I think that's the trickiest part of the podcast. I find the interviews are so enjoyable. It's everything else that makes it harder. But like any goal, if it's worth it, like, you find a way, you do it.
mhm. Well, this has been a great podcast, Chris. We got a curveball here, to use a baseball
Yeah, you have
analogy. Chris is gonna announce it, but
you have
oh, go ahead, Chris.
I was just gonna say you have 10 more minutes, Emily.
You know what? I have to do a podcast recording for my show when I'm done with your show. So
All right, we'll go quick then. Everybody go follow
I don't know if
Emily.
that was a yes or a no.
It's a yes for a 3-minute one, Chris. So just
Okay.
Yeah.
say your
You
thing.
got
Say
it,
your thing,
Dan.
man.
You
Throw
got
your
it, Dan.
curveball. Throw your
Yeah.
curveball.
So Dan and I, when we started doing this channel, this show, it was music reactions. So we're still doing that for our guests. So remember, this is going to be out there for eternity. So
Okay.
we want you to pick a song that's top of mind that maybe Dan and I haven't heard, and we're going to react to it real
Song
quick. We're
that
going to
you
react to
and
a song
Song that you think we haven't heard that we might like.
and that you do absolutely like.
okay.
Yes.
Champion by Ludacris and Carrie Underwood. A really interesting duo.
Wow.
You heard this one, Dan?
No, I like both, but
I do too.
I haven't heard the song. The champ, Carrie Underwood, the champ. Oh, I found it. Thank you, Emily. And by the way, Emily is we're only 30 episodes in. This is number 31. She's only the second female, so we got to do a better job of. But this
Yeah,
is like one of our best podcasts ever.
it is
I knew it would
absolutely
be. I knew it would be.
very entertaining, very interesting.
What a duo. Name a better duo. I'll wait. That's Carrie. Yeah, I've always been a fan ever since she's talking about scratching that dude's pickup truck. That from then I was like, this is a real one right here.
Pretty amazing. You guys pumped up or what?
Oh,
Yeah, that was
pumped.
awesome.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Never heard of mate. That was a winner. I'll buy it. Chris will buy it. I already know.
Yep.
There you go.
Thank you,
All right.
Emily. Everybody go
Absolutely. Thank
connect.
you.
I just followed her on all her stuff. You don't have a Twitter, do you?
No Twitter, no X for me.
Instagram and LinkedIn I
Yeah.
connected, and then we'll
Instagram
have
and
fun.
LinkedIn. I gotta narrow the field a little bit or I'll
Yeah, no, I feel you. I feel you.
yeah.
Okay, well, it was a pleasure, Emily. We'll have
So
you
fun,
back
Dan.
on at
Absolutely.
some point, and very glad to have you. Thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah,
Have a good
thanks
rest of
guys.
the day, Emily. Bye
All
bye.
right, you too. Bye.